I found that I kept working for villains. You know, lawyers are not a real jolly, positive, optimistic bunch.
Hey, got something really cool I wanted to run by and let you know what's going on. So I'm starting a group that will start taking a deep dive into each one of these episodes. So we'll collectively come together and talk about the shows, talk about the guests. I'll be bringing back some of the guests to do some Q&A sessions and really take a further dive into their story, their journey, the episode, talk about, you know, maybe some of the things you wish I would have asked on the episodes, do some Q&A sessions and the like. As a friend put it to me, it's really like a book club, but for the podcast. So a couple times a week, we'll go in, we'll break down the favorite shows of the week, and have cool discussions around everything that we've heard, we've learned, and want to know about their journey. Some of these guests will come in and they'll teach part of, you know, what makes them awesome at what they do. And then, as always, I'll be providing regular value and content in this group. It's really cool because this only is going to cost $5 a month to join this group. And you'll be able to come in, interact with everybody else in there. So I'll put a link right in the show notes for this that you can jump in, come have a conversation with us, and we will really deep dive into each one of these episodes and help us all rise up together. Thanks for tuning in, guys. It's going to be a great show today. You know, having the show wasn't something I started out to do. But the day I found out somebody wanted to really sponsor the show was a really, really cool experience. So, guys, I want you to take some time to go check out Point Blank Safety Services and their new nonprofit, Blue Family Fund. These guys are doing some really, really cool things. And Stacy McGovern, who's the CEO over there, has been a dear friend, and she was a guest on the show. You know, but these guys are literally taking, you know, the off-duty officers and putting them out in security guard role. And here's what's cool about it is, you know, as they're protecting our lives, you know, they don't make a whole lot of money in that regard. No first responders are paid for the value they provide for our safety and our health and taking care of us. So these guys, you know, Stacy and her team over at Point Blank Safety Services have really found a cool way to give back to these officers by helping them provide an additional income so they can continue to support and protect us. So do me a favor, guys. Seriously, go check out pointblanksafety.com and then go look at their nonprofit, which is Blue Family Fund. Now, this nonprofit was created because of the success of Point Blank Safety Services. They wanted to give back to the families of fallen officers and be able to give scholarships away to the families of current, police officers. So do me a favor. It would mean the world to me if you would go out and help support this show by supporting Point Blank Safety Services and their nonprofit Blue Family Fund. Just tell them Donnie has sent you. You heard it on Donnie Success Champions, and Stacy will take a tremendous and amazing care of you. Thanks, guys. All right, guys, so this is going to be a really, really cool episode. I get to, pick on a lawyer. You're going to hear me pick on Tom as we go through this. But, man, what a cool story about how a visit from his grandfather helped him create a whole nother business that has completely changed the trajectory of where his company, his career, and his life is going. Enjoy this one. All right, guys, so it's going to be another fun episode. I'm sure I'm going to pick on him, but this is Tom Ladegaard, and I'm going to bring him in. But, I love having the attorneys on the show because I get to pick on them, and they just have to take it because it's my show. So, Tom, welcome to the episode, man. I appreciate you being on here, man. Please share with us what's your story, what's your journey.
Hey, thank you for having me. My name is Tom Ladegaard, and I'm in North San Diego County. I'm in the city of Carlsbad, state of California. And so I'm a 15-year litigation business attorney, and I've got another business called Eternal Roots, or Custom Documentary, where I interview seniors and record their life stories. So
that's so awesome.
I wear multiple hats.
So awesome. I can't wait to talk about that. So I know you've had a pretty fun run with a lot of things that you've done. Kind of walk us through your story of everything that's kind of happened on your journey. How'd you get into becoming a lawyer? Why'd you go that route? What's happened during that process? And then how you came to developing this whole next edition of yourself.
Okay, so we're going to dig deep here. We're going back.
Oh, yeah, we're going all in.
we're going back to the late 1990s then. So if you knew me back in the late 1990s, I had long hair. Now I'm on the other end of the spectrum, but I had long hair down the middle of my back. And I was going to school up in the wine country up in Northern California for undergrad. And I decided that I wanted to be an attorney. I was a kitchen manager before then. Loved cooking, but just didn't really get any fulfillment from the work and not a whole lot of financial upside there. And so just the thought of being a lawyer appealed to me. And right around this time, and then all my friends made fun of me, didn't take me seriously. And so, you know what I did was I got new friends. I moved out, got into another house with some more mature people who weren't trying to crush my dreams. And so I got away from the negative, toxic people who were telling me I couldn't do it. You immerse yourself in that enough and you start to believe it. And so around that time, I had sent a picture to my mom. I had just cut my hair. So I sent her the very first picture of me with my haircut, sent it to her in North Carolina. She took it to a psychic.
Oh.
Yeah, she had a reading done, and she got it recorded on cassette tape, and she sent it to me. And I remember receiving it. It was 1998. I was 21 years old. I was getting ready to go to law school. I'd already decided that was my career path. And on this tape, the lady was talking about when I'm 41 years old, I'm going to make transformative documentaries about humanity. And I just thought that, and I'm going to be doing animation and documentaries. And I thought, well, that's just crazy. This woman's a quack. And so I just kind of put the tape aside and forgot about it. And then I went to law school, came down to San Diego. I didn't have great LSAT numbers, not a great test taker. I was a double major up at Sonoma State, philosophy and communications. As a philosophy major, you're going to law school or you're flipping burgers. And so that's just, that's the way I went. So I got put in a school called California Western, which is a lower ranked school. And because my LSAT was not good, I was put in a mandatory orientation program where they teach you how to be a law student before school begins. And in that program... So
they're sending you to school to learn how to school.
Yeah, it's a totally different game.
All right.
And it was mandatory because my numbers weren't great. So I went to this program. It was like 2 weeks long before the semester began. And one professor taught me a program of this is how you do it. This is how the game is played. Forget everything you knew about being a student in undergrad and high school. This is a totally different game. And so I just decided he probably knows what he's talking about. And so I just bought in. And I applied his program throughout my first year. And I was in the top quarter of my class. I heard a rumor that if you applied to, there's another school in the county here called the University of San Diego, USD. And that's a much higher reputed school. I heard a rumor that if you applied and USC took you in, Cal Western would kick you some money to keep you. So I was looking for a way to get a scholarship. USD accepted me. Cal Western didn't throw any money at me. Tuition was the same. The weight of the diploma was a lot different. So I jumped. So I transferred to USD. And then I continued applying that study program that professor taught me. And I came out of USD in the top 19th percentile of my class in 2003. And graduated into a very difficult economy. So that's a little bit of background about how I at least, became a lawyer.
Right.
I knew I wanted to be a litigator. Civil litigation appealed to me, business litigation in particular, but the economy was rough. So I came out of school, went to work for a professor of mine. He had a real estate litigation practice. He brought me in. And so I got the second chair trial, 2 trials with him as a first-year lawyer. And so I got some really good hands-on experience, and then I got laid off in my second year, and I found myself as a sole practitioner.
Well, let's back up just one step because I
Sure.
want people to understand this, that when you got out and you first became a lawyer, at that point you were what, making $500,000 on your way to $1 million and, already buying the luxury cars and yachts, right?
Totally, yeah. I just hit the jackpot. No, in reality, I was it was a tough economy. And yeah, if you're at the top of your class, you're making 6 figures at some big law firm, but you're also working insane hours and you have no life and you're working some soul-sucking job. I was making about $25 an hour.
Right.
That's what I was making. And so I was just barely paying my rent and feeding myself. My loans were in forbearance. It was a character building time. And so then I went out on my own, and the same firm where I was an associate, I then became a tenant. And so I ate what I killed. And so that was a challenge for me. And I joined a networking group that just started getting myself out there. I'm not a real natural networker. At least wasn't back then, but better now. And I found that it was exhilarating bringing in my own cases, bringing in my own matters. And I had to teach myself law practice management, accounting, how to do invoicing and all that. Not fun things, but I had to teach myself everything. And that year, I did better on my own than I did working for the law firm. So I was proud of that. But I felt like I needed to have the law firm experience. You know, I wanted to be an associate. I wanted to be on a partnership track. I wanted to build a 401k. You know, those are the things. I wanted security, which I later learned is a complete illusion. You're probably more secure being on your own. And so I went to work for a trust and probate litigation firm where I didn't quite know what that entailed, but what it was is it's siblings suing each other. When mom or dad has dementia or mom or dad dies, then all the siblings start fighting with each other over the estate. I lasted 4 months there. I couldn't take it. It was destroying my faith in humanity. And so I got out of there. And then I bounced around between a couple of litigation firms. I found that I kept working for villains. You know, lawyers are not a real jolly, positive, optimistic bunch, you know?
Nah, say it ain't so.
It's insider info right here. You know, and over the years, I found like the people I was working for, I didn't really want to model myself after them. I found like I was learning what not to do, how not to treat people. And just, you know, with my own ethics and integrity, I just found like I moved around from firms. My resume does not look great because I just jumped around a bunch over the last 15 years because I didn't like the people I worked for. I didn't respect them. Eventually, I landed at one firm where I finally made some decent money. This was around 2007. I got married, and we had 2 kids. In fact, if we have any interruptions, my kid's in the back room playing right now. So if anything happens, they come walking out. You're forewarned. And so around that time, I started working on a book, giving advice to law students. And that system I told you about that I applied in law school, I wrote a book about it. And it's about 250 pages. I'm proud of the content I wrote. But while I was working at this firm, I suffered extreme burnout. I lost my passion. I put the book down. I just became kind of a depressed, dark person. I had like a storm cloud following me everywhere. And like my work would follow me home. I was working nights. I was working weekends. Promised bonuses didn't materialize. And I just became a really depressed person. I became an unhappy person, and that's not a pleasant person to be around. And, you know, my marriage suffered at that time. And that's where the seeds were planted of my ultimate divorce, which I'm just now pending. So the seeds were planted way back then.
Wow.
And so that was a tough patch for me. And then I got fired. And it was kind of exhilarating. But
lawyers can get fired?
We can get fired. Yeah, if you work for a law. Well, first of all, your clients can fire you or your law firm can fire you.
Now, wait. You want to be a lawyer. You go to school to be a lawyer. You're supposed to get out of lawyer school, make millions of dollars, live in the dream, drive the fast cars, the big houses. How the hell did you get fired?
I told my boss what I thought.
I know that's all bullshit, too, just so you know.
I know. No, I love the irony. And, you know, but there are a lot of lawyers who do have that lifestyle. But here's what I'll tell your listeners. If you want to have that kind of lifestyle, you're never going to do it by being an employee.
100%.
Okay? Yeah, you got to work for yourself. And this is in any industry. You know, it doesn't matter what the industry is or the license. You got to be your own boss or you have to be a principal. If you're going to be an employee, even if you're a well-paid employee, you're enriching your employer while remaining broke yourself.
And one thing I want to add to that, just so people can embrace it, there's nothing wrong with working for somebody else, but become okay with that. Because a lot of people spend all their times, I wish I could have that, I wish I could do this, I wish I could have this different life. That's what causes a lot of burnout for people, is they're wishing they can have more. You know, be okay where you're at and learn to love life and embrace life wherever you're at the moment, and be okay with that.
And it's important that you find happiness within too, because your career isn't going to give you the happiness. Like if you can find happiness within, you'll actually excel at your career more. So that's something I want to throw out. And also, I don't regret working at law firms. That's where I learned how to be an attorney. That's where I got the experience. So I don't look back at that as a negative or like I sold out or anything. No, to the contrary. That's where I learned the trade. And so now I'm applying what I've learned over the years, and now I'm on my own again. I got into it with my boss one day. Morale was really low, and I heard he was saying things about me around the office. And so one day he and I got into it, and I had a few times where I could have walked away, and I just kept needling him. And I think subconsciously I wanted him to fire me. I just was done. And
so, kids, if you're listening and you want to get fired, go pick a fight with your boss.
He actually picked a fight with me, but I could have walked away, and I didn't. And then eventually he picked up a stack of paper this high and said, I'm too busy to deal with this. And he threw it across the room. I was like, oh, I'm out of here. I walked away and cooled off for a little while. Then I came back, and then they let me go, and I got a month of severance, and I was out of there. So it was a weird feeling. I was kind of numb, but it just felt exhilarating. And I should throw this in there. Around that time, my wife and I were doing network marketing. So that's something I was doing on the side. And I was thinking like, well, this was my ticket out of here. And so I'm years removed from that now.
So you bought into both myths. Myth number one, you're going to be a lawyer, rich and wealthy. And then the secondary myth that you're going to do network marketing and become rich and wealthy.
Well, that's why anyone does that. Yeah.
Right.
You know, but I don't regret that. I learned a ton from doing network marketing. I learned a ton. It taught me about personal development. That's where I was exposed to personal development at a time where I badly needed it.
That's how a lot of people get exposed to it, actually.
Yeah, correct. And then I started reading books and listening to audios, going to conferences, being around positive people. And so that actually really kind of started turning my life around. So like that funk that I was in, that I was describing, that started to clear a little bit because now I had something I was working on that was for me. So instead of enriching a boss, I was doing a project, for my family, for me. Having said that, I'm glad to be out of that industry as well. I outgrew it.
Now, I'm going to clarify one thing for just myself. I don't hate lawyers. I don't hate network marketing. I think people both go into that with misconceptions of how hard they're going to have to work, how they're actually going to have to function as a business owner and outdo anything they've ever done in their life that is to such a scale that most people aren't prepared to go all in. And to make both those professions work, it's 100% you got to go all in on you.
Yes, and there's no shortcuts. There's no quick and fast and easy way to do it. You got to put in the work and you got to put in the time.
Yep.
Yeah, and in network marketing, you got to be ready to get uncomfortable.
Real quick.
Yeah, and actually, I got kind of good at it. Like I was prospecting people everywhere I went, and I was getting pretty good at it. But some things happened with the company that I felt ethically compromised, even sharing the business anymore. And then I just kind of outgrew it. And then, so then we were where are we now? We're about 2016. So after getting fired from the job, I went to a couple different firms. I was working downtown for an insurance coverage firm where we represented insurance companies. I'm helping insurance companies. I'm writing reservation of rights letters. I'm defending them in bad faith lawsuits. And I was helping them pull coverage from their insureds. It wasn't something that I was inspired to do. It wasn't why I went to law school. And now I just felt like I was working for Darth Vader. Like I was working for the man. And the money wasn't great. The commute was brutal. And one day I bumped into a guy downtown. I went to law school with him, and he and I had a case against each other 10 years ago. And I bumped into him, and he was telling me how he quit his firm. He went out on his own, and he's making way more money than he ever made on his own, but as an employee. And it just seemed, he was dressed casually, he's wearing jeans, walking around downtown, and I saw that, and I thought, I sold out. I took the easy way. I got a job, and that's where seeds were planted of, whenever I leave this firm, I'm going out on my own. I'm not going to work for some other firm. Done. So now we're in December 2016. Christmas dinner. All my family's here at the table. My parents are in town. I think I had an aunt and uncle there. And in the next week, my 96-year-old grandfather was coming into town for lunch. And so as we're sitting there sharing family stories, it dawned on me that, I don't know how much longer he's going to be here. And, I am a lawyer. I know how to interview people. I own a crappy little video camera. You know what? I'm going to interview my grandpa, and I'm just going to record his life story. So that thought popped into my head spontaneously. And I blurted it out at the table. that, Grandpa's coming to town. I'm going to interview him and I'm going to make a video about his life. And people just kind of looked at me and nodded and shrugged. Okay. And so when he came into town, I remember on the train, the way down, I was scribbling notes, just scribbling out questions. I was all over the place. And I had my camera in my bag. And so at lunch, I just hit him between the eyes. No tact, no planning. I said, hey, Grandpa, I want to interview you and record your life. Can we do that? And he said, sure. I said, and then I record it using video camera. Okay. And I want to make DVDs of it and send it to the whole family. And he said, great. So we went up to my office and we got started. And I put the camera on a stack of pleading papers because I didn't have a tripod. And we ran out of time. We couldn't finish. But he got into it. He opened up. And I think he appreciated having the attention put on him. And so I went back up to his house a week or two later, and we started over. I didn't own a microphone. I didn't own a tripod. And I had a really crappy Sony camcorder. So I took his ottoman, and I took every book I can find in the living room and magazine, and I put the camera on top of it. Then we dove in, and then at some point my
battery died. You know what I love
died.
about this? How everything starts, right? You work with whatever you have, and you start figuring it out.
Well, what am I going to do? Wait till I have some 4K high-def camera and, all this gear? No, I just did it because I wasn't looking for a business. I just was like, this is an idea I want to do. And so, it had its imperfections. That's also what made it charming. Here's more charm for you. My battery died on the camera. I didn't think to charge it. And so I had to finish the interview with my cell phone. So I had my phone. I was leaning forward using my phone and just trying to keep him in frame. And so, it just was not high tech at all. I think I was looking up his nose, but we got through the interview. I learned a lot of things about his life that I did not know. For example, I learned that he was a bomber pilot. Well, I already knew that, but one morning during training in New Mexico, he's on the flight line at 5 a.m. getting ready to take off, and the sky lights up. All of a sudden, it's daylight, instantly. And the government said it was a munitions dump, but in reality, they were testing the A-bomb.
Oh, wow.
And he saw it. And because of that A-bomb, which then got dropped, he didn't have to get shipped to the Pacific Theater. And bomber pilots, you have a real short shelf life out there.
Yep.
And the Japanese were not, going to just roll over. And so that bomb saved him from having to go out and actually see action. So that's an example of something I learned about his life.
Wow.
When we completed the interview, he did a big exhale. And what I read from him was that my story's out there. I shared my story. I could die tomorrow. My story is preserved in his own words. So I get home. Now I have to teach myself video editing. I have no background in that. I had to find an editing software and then just play around and learn how to use it. YouTube tutorials. Learning the UI was really frustrating because I had all these ideas in my head of what I wanted to do, but I didn't have the technical chops to pull it off. So I just practiced and practiced and practiced. And we had a bunch of photos from him. We made a slideshow for his birthday when he turned 90. So I started experimenting with taking these photos and working them into the video. So as he's sharing experiences about his career in the Air Force, I would fade in with photos of him in uniform. I did that throughout his life. So it brought his story to life. It gave it some depth. It was just not a talking head. So that's something where I thought, I might be onto something here. This might be something interesting. Next thing I did was I transcribed it, word for word, Q&A, and I turned it into a book. And then I took the same pictures from the video and I put them in the book in the same places. Just use a Word document. Got it printed, got it published in hardcover. We developed a little dust jacket for it. My wife at the time was a graphic designer, so she was helping me out with that kind of stuff. And so I shared on social media that this is what I did. I took a selfie with me and Grandpa and just put it up and just kind of shared this is what we did. And it got a lot of feedback. And people were saying, I wish I did that with my dad when he was still alive. Enough people said that to me that it had an effect on me. So one night I was driving home from work and I was just turning this over in my mind and boom, in an instant, I decided there's a business here. I can do this for others. I can do this as a business. It was spontaneous. And I just came to, and I think I yelled out loud, and I ran home and immediately started getting on the phone with people and bouncing ideas and working on this. And so within a couple of weeks, we had the name Eternal Roots. And I went out and got my fictitious business name for it. I had to teach myself web design, so I went on Weebly and built myself a website. And then I went to an expo. an aging conference expo, set up a booth.
Wait, an aging conference? That's a thing?
Yeah. Yeah. It was called the Successful Aging Expo, where, you know, there's like life insurance and funeral services and, you know, or like contractors who you put in wheelchair ramps and stuff.
Right.
Yeah. All sorts of things. And so I was a unicorn at this thing. I totally stood out. And I got my first paying client from that event. And so that was a cool experience. And then I got featured in a local magazine. And then I got a few clients out of that too. And so I started building some portfolio. And then I contacted the County Bar Association. They have this program they do annually called the Distinguished Lawyer Memorial, where lawyers and judges who pass away, they get nominated by their colleagues to get inducted into what's like a Hall of Fame. You get a plaque in the courthouse that's up there permanently, and there's a ceremony. And I've always known about this. And I thought, they don't do videos. It's just, they just do a little ceremony and you get a plaque and they take pictures and it's done. I thought, well, what if we did a memorial video to show at this event? So I reached out to them, introduced myself. Hey, I'm Tom. I'm a lawyer. I've got this videography business. Have you thought about doing memorial videos? And they asked me to make a proposal. So I submitted a proposal in writing. I grossly underbid myself. And then about 4 months later, they accepted it and said, okay, great. 6 people are being inducted this year. I want you to interview 3 people for each inductee and make 6 videos of 5 to 7 minutes in length. And I had about 2 or 3 months to turn it around. And so then it was freak out time. So I was way over my head. And I know how to interview people. My video editing had improved, but I had a lot of work to go. So I got started with that. I hired a contractor, a video editor, so who's going to handle the video production, and then I was going to handle the interviews and the logistics. And now I had 18 people to interview in a very short span of time. I was working at a law firm, and I don't know how deep I want to get into this with you. I'll go a little bit. I had some spirits come through me, man. I don't care if you believe this or not, if this is outside your belief system, but I was visited by the other side in the process of doing this. So the people I was memorializing, they came through. So that was a life-changing experience for me. But another way that this process was life-changing was that I was memorializing the lives of people who did extraordinary things with their lives. They weren't just lawyers and judges. They were at the top of their game, and they made the world a better place. They left legacies. They touched other people. They made other people's lives better. And yeah, then they got the material wealth and all that, but that's secondary. These people made the world a better place. That's why they got inducted. That changed me. So I'm interviewing the spouses and their law partners and their kids. That had a profound effect on me about, you know what, tomorrow's not promised to any of us. You can get hit by a bus tomorrow and you're gone. Or, you know, a disease can hit you and you're gone. So don't wait until the timing is right. Don't wait until you feel like you're ready. You'll never be ready. So if you've got a passion or a dream or something you want to do, you need to go for it and stop punting it till tomorrow and procrastinating. That's what that process taught me.
Dude, what an insane ride. So all because of your grandpa coming home or he's coming in town, you're like, I want to record a story. Now, I mean, if you really want to take this story full circle, you opened with your mom went and saw a fortune teller, right?
That's how I started, correct.
Right. To you stacking some books up, putting the camera on, camera dies, having to use your cell phone, and because you're sharing your story about, you know, this kind of hobby, people take interest and you figure out how to turn it into a business. Here's what I love. I think that's how the best businesses are born. Is they're born out of, I want to do something more, or I want to give back, and opportunities get in front of them and people step through and take them. But now you find yourself, like every small business owner, as they start scaling, you get that first, oh crap job, and you've got to figure it out.
Right.
You know, what a trip. You know, when you're doing the memorial videos on these people, and I'm okay with the people talking through you, that's your story. I got nothing against it. Did you get an opportunity to interview these people prior to passing, or were you interviewing families and friends?
Family and friends.
Okay, so they were sharing the stories then of people's life. So
yeah,
that's
I would take their testimonies and I would weave them together with pictures and music to make a tribute video for the people that were shown, and it was shown at a public ceremony in front of like the whole legal team.
So you're creating a documentary of somebody's life.
Yeah. It's heavy. It's a lot.
Yeah,
it's a lot of responsibility.
That is a lot of responsibility because you're memorializing, their journey, their story. I mean, that's one of the reasons I do the podcast is because I love hearing people's stories. But you're reaching into the beyond, if you will, just to keep it on the same theme, to keep that person's history alive.
And give a voice to their legacy,
Yeah. I can't imagine what that feeling's got to be like when not only are you playing it for the courthouse for the people to see, but you're also delivering it to the family.
Yeah.
And a lot of those heavy-hitting lawyers in particular, they're not always the greatest family men because they gave up that portion of their life to go change the world from being a lawyer. I'm curious how many of the family members are coming back to him and said, man, I didn't know Grandpa did that, or I didn't know Dad, did that. Have you had a lot of those type of experiences in doing this?
There were times where, like, through the testimony of the colleagues, the family members would learn things they didn't know. And, while I'm setting up my gear, I'm chatting with them and getting to know them and building some rapport. And I'll say, like, oh, yeah, so-and-so told me this about your dad. And that sometimes they wouldn't know that, or there'd be a lot more detail there that they didn't know. But the most exhilarating part was that at the ceremony, there's probably about 300 lawyers and judges and family members in this room. And I'm in the back of the room watching the community watch the video that I made, And so this year I did it again. I got hired again. This time I didn't sub it out. I did the whole thing myself. I taught myself a video editing on a new platform. I'm on the Adobe platform, which is like the top tier for video editing. And I taught myself that earlier this year. So the quality really stepped up. And this year I got to memorialize some heavy hitters, like the first black female judge in the county.
That's
I got
awesome.
to get her story, like about the racism and the sexism that she faced. I also memorialized a judge who fought in the Battle of the Bulge, who liberated concentration camps, who then would befriend prisoners as he's sending them to prison. He would reach out to them and give them his address and say, correspond with me. And he'd build up friendships with people he sentenced to prison. And so one of the guys I interviewed was someone who did like 8 years. He struck up a pen pal relationship with this judge, and then they became friends when he got out. And the judge helped commute his sentence and got him out because he saw he was reforming, and the judge helped get him released early. So I interviewed him about his experience with the judge, and I weaved that into the video I made for this judge, along with some colleagues. So the colleagues were saying he befriended prisoners, and I'd fade into the convicts saying his own story. And by the end of the video, the room just spontaneously started applauding as he was talking about how, he's married and he's got his own business now. And so, like, the hairs on my arm stand up.
I've almost got it myself. I mean, that's powerful stuff, dude. And again, I keep coming back to a lot of the power attorneys that I know, I'll go back to, they're not the strongest family guys because they're married to the career. Yeah. Not more than they are their family, but to make it big in that legal game, you're sacrificing one or the other. I mean, that's just the game you're in. So I love the fact that, I stood in front of a room one time, and I'm huge on journaling. Journaling is a big thing I do. And I stood in front of the room, and this whole session that I was training on sales, I asked the room, does anybody journal? Well, during this session, there was this one guy. And that one guy was just Mr. You can't teach me anything. Why are you in front of the room? You're a punk kid. He was a jackass the entire time I'm doing my presentation. When I asked the room, does anybody journal? He raised his hand, and I thought, oh, shit, here we go. Right? This dude's just going to club me with something. And I said, all right, why do you journal? And his response, he goes, dude, I'm an asshole. I'm a jerk. Nobody likes me, and I know it. My family knows I'm a jerk. My kids know I'm a jerk. My grandkids think I'm a jerk. I journal every day, and I tell them why I work so hard, why I put in so many hours, and why I do the things they do so they can live the lifestyle they have. So at some point, when I pass on, they get the book of my story, of the things I did for every day of my life. So even though they thought I was a jerk, it was because I was creating a life where they could live better than I ever did. And I went, holy shit. I mean, this guy, you can imagine I'm in a blue-collar room with all these, just blue-collar guys, and he's hitting us with that, and the whole room just kind of went dead looking at him because nobody could believe these words came out of his mouth.
But that story makes me sad. That story makes me sad, and here's why. Okay, he's working hard, work ethic, he's sacrificing, he's doing it for the family. I bet the family would rather have their dad.
Oh, 100%. 100%. Agree with you. The same thing with the attorneys, right? The attorneys' families would rather have their dad.
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
And so in this profession, it's long hours, billable hours, and you can never work enough. There's always more you can do. There's always more work you can do. And so it follows you nights and weekends. And sometimes you're not present because you're thinking about the other things you could or should be doing, or stressors coming up, hearings and depositions coming up. And sometimes that makes you not present. And then if you're stressed out, that can make you short with people. This is what I experienced in my own life and what ultimately led to the demise of my own marriage. And I see lawyers as not real happy people. Now, the lawyers I memorialized for this program, these were people who found more balance, at least so their kids said. Like, I asked their kids, like, how did your dad or mom balance the pressures of the career? And, they always spoke glowingly about, well, dad would make time, or he'd always be at my football game, or they'd take me to the office. But, you don't know what was really going on.
Right.
Dad was probably not there a lot of the time. And so I'm telling you from my own experience, that's what it was like for me. And now as a sole practitioner and I own this videography business, that's something I suffer from sometimes too, where my kids are here and I'm not giving them as much attention as I would like. Or, because I got this to deal with. Or I'm thinking about that. So maybe I'm not always as present.
So do you see a point to where this business takes off? Because I think you're onto something. I think this is a beautiful thing that you're doing. I really, really, truly do. I know even my own dad right now is writing his story, and this whole thing is thinking, shit, I got to capture this on, on video, because he's experienced a lot. My middle brother just got a chance to go visit a place, dad went to when he was a kid. And it's just wild to see that portion of the story. So you're doing a phenomenal thing, a really, really cool thing, because, when people that get memorialized like that are like celebrities and people, have won these massive awards and they get the History Channel documentaries and those type of things. And I know you're doing a lot for lawyers, but, you're memorializing everyday people, which is, a really, really, really cool thing.
And these people are, these are seniors. These are people who came up in another generation. They aren't, a lot of them are really introverted. They're not really good at expressing their emotions. These guys are veterans. They fought in Nam and in World War II, and they witnessed some things that changed them and scarred them that they don't share. And so a challenge is just getting them to open up and trust me, and sometimes it takes 30 minutes to an hour until I feel like I have rapport with this person. Right now, I'm doing the life story of a 96-year-old who fought at Guadalcanal.
Wow.
And got shot at in the jungle, watched his friends die all around him, and, survived. And so we went into details about his military service. And I was trying to be respectful and not ask idiotic questions about wartime, but, get to more about how did it affect you, how did it change you, and how did you cope. That's what we talked about. And then I would just shut up and let him talk.
Right.
And, at the end of the video, he comes out after a bathroom break. He was already mic'd up. And he just started talking, hey, you're a really nice guy. Thank you for doing this. I don't know how you're getting paid for this. The founder hired me. But, this is great. And he sits down, and I reached over and hit record. Because he was just talking off the record. And he goes, I just want to thank you for spending time with this old man and spending time with this old Marine. And in the moment, I was like, oh, my God, I couldn't even talk anymore. I almost freaking broke down right now. It means something to the seniors to listen to them and ask them questions and get to know them and have them share their stories. So, yeah, the family benefits by getting that product, but the person sharing their story benefits because they get to get their wisdom out. They get to be heard. They get to be acknowledged.
That's awesome.
So that's the real value right there.
Yeah, dude. Do you see a point where this is going to take over your lawyer world?
That's the plan.
That's where all this is going, huh?
Yeah. And so I didn't share my transition. So when I was doing the first memorial project in 2017, I was too busy going all over town interviewing people. And I did a couple of interviews in my office, and my boss, they were getting a little upset at me. And I wasn't exactly keeping up with my billable hour quota.
You got people in the office, but they're not lawyer billable hours, so they're like, what the hell you got somebody here for?
It's for my own project, and right. I got my lighting kit and my camera set up in my office, and I feel like, they took my salary away.
Oh.
Yeah, and so all of a sudden my paycheck went down by a couple grand, and they put me on hourly, and the firm was dead. They just didn't have the volume. And I wasn't happy there anyways. I was working for insurance companies. And so I decided, I'm so busy here with videography. I'm losing money now in the law firm, and they're giving me a real hard time. I feel like the universe is telling me it's time. It's time to leave, because I was wondering when this is going to happen. And so I just decided the time was right. And so I quit my job in April of last year and went out on my own. I had like 2 clients I took with me. And so this is how I built my law practice. I started doing public speaking gigs. I started going into teaching workshops. And so there's an SBA office right across the hallway from us. And one day a lady comes in from the SBA asking what kind of law we practice. And this receptionist practically chased her off. And she goes, well, we just represent insurance companies. And so the lady turned around, and I come out, and I was mad. I go, what are you doing? That's a business owner looking for a lawyer. And you just turned her away. And she goes, I don't know. And so I started building relationships with the SBA across the hallway. And then one day a director comes over, and she starts picking my brain about a personal legal issue. And I gladly volunteered my time. Next thing I know, I'm on a radio program with them. And then I got invited to do workshops around the county where they're called lender fairs, where I'm up in front of a room full of business owners with a microphone. I get 25 minutes to do Q&A with the audience. And so I'd suit up, and I'd just go out there and, so I like public speaking. And so that's what I know. So I started doing that. And after I left my job, I just continued doing that. And then that led to more opportunities where I started teaching workshops to veteran entrepreneurs. And so that's how I built my practice. I don't have a website. I don't have a social media page. I don't do advertising. It's word of mouth, networking, and teaching. And I do these things. I don't charge a fee. I'm not salesy. I don't get up there and say, if you hire me today, you get X, Y. No. I just give value to them and bond with them. Try to show that I'm competent and I'm likable. And that's been my secret to success there. So then one client refers me to his friends, or then I get repeat business. And so that's how it's been. There were some lean months here and there. Every now and then, being an entrepreneur, there's ups and there's downs. But some months I make way more money than I made at the law firm. And then other months it's lean. That's part of the journey. And so ultimately, long term, I want Eternal Roots to be my full-time gig. I want to scale it. My ex-wife was my graphic designer. She did my logo. She did my brochures. All my branding came from her. And she's a very talented designer. My stuff looked beautiful. It's also tainted to me personally. So I'm tearing it all down and building it back up. So I'm getting a new logo. I'm rebranding it. So I'm building it back up. So I've actually kind of paused it because I need to get a team. I've been doing it all myself and burning the candle at both ends. And now I'm splitting custody. I got my kids with me half the time. So it's been too much. So, I decided I'm going to stop doing this thing like a hobby. I'm going to do it like an actual business. So I'm pausing. I'm accepting clients if they come to me, but I'm not really promoting it and building it. I'm pausing it to get my house in order. Slow down to go fast.
Right.
So I'm doing the rebrand. I'm going to put new brochures out, new logo, new videos, and then I need to get a team. I'm going to get video editors under me, so I'm not doing everything. I'm going to get some people to help me with marketing. I'm going to get people helping with book production. I'll even get associate interviewers out there as well. So I'm not going to really do a push until I feel like I have the infrastructure, so I can treat this thing the way it should be and build it to scale.
That's awesome. What a cool idea. What a cool concept. I mean, and once again, I'll go back to, I love how things came from a personal need, you could say, a personal desire to capture your grandfather's story. What a cool thing. So let's say somebody's out of state. They're not in California. How would you capture this information for them?
There are some things we can do, and I'm always looking to work outside the box. I made a video for someone where I interviewed his parents who are in their 80s in Florida, and I use Zoom, the same platform we're using right here. And so typically what I would do is we'd get on like an intro call so I could see How good is their internet connection? What's the lighting like? So I've done it using Zoom remotely. Face-to-face is always ideal, but I can do it that way. And then I had another situation pop up where someone hired me. She's going to do the interview herself. And so I prepared the outline, and I sent it to her, and then I coached her on it. And I've got a do-it-yourself series on my I have a blog, do-it-yourself series, so I can teach people how to do this too. And so I'm coaching her on how to do it herself. So she can go and do the video, do the interview, send me the files, so then I can handle it all on the back end.
That's awesome. That's
something else I can do. But then also another thing I want to do is, I'm happy to empower other people. I mean, there's nothing I can really patent here. I'm interviewing people. That's not really something I can say it's mine. Other than, I got my trademark for my business name, but other than that, this isn't something I can stop other people from doing. If I inspire other people to do this for their own families, then this project is a success. And so I'm working on an ebook where I educate people on how to do this.
That's awesome. That's a cool way to give back and generally help other people. And Zig Ziglar said it best: you help enough people get what they want, you'll get what you want, man.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So how do people find you? How do they reach out? How do they get in touch with you?
My website is eternal-roots.com. I had to put the hyphen in there because there's some cyber squatter on the regular one, and I'm not going to pay thousands of dollars, so I put the hyphen in there. So it's eternal-roots.com. I've got a YouTube channel. Look up Eternal Roots on YouTube. I'm on LinkedIn, and I'm on Facebook. So that's how one would find me. I don't even have a website up in my law practice. I'll change that eventually, but I'm not even there right now.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, Tom, man, I really appreciate you being on this show. Here's how I like to finish every episode, and I do stump some people with this, so be forewarned. So it's if you were going to leave my audience with a phrase, a motto, a slogan, maybe a mantra, a quote, something that they could take with them on their journey, especially if they're really going through it. They're trying to figure out, how do they keep pushing forward? How do they keep chasing their dreams? How do they, keep evolving their journey? What would be that quote or phrase that you would say, pull this out and use it?
Look at what you're doing with your life right now, then imagine yourself on your deathbed. Are you going to regret doing what you're doing right now?
Oh, that's awesome. Well done, brother. Well done.
I got goosebumps when I said that. That's part of what made me do this. I decided I could stay with the law practice and work for other people, but when I'm on my deathbed, am I going to regret not going for it? I might fail. I might fall on my face, but I went for it. And so
That's
I can't
awesome.
regret going for it.
That's awesome. Well, brother, thanks so much for being on the show and sharing your story with us.
Hey, thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun talking to you.
Absolutely.
You know what, guys? Really, thank you for listening to this episode. I really appreciate it. It's a lot of fun putting these together. I wanted to make sure before we get out of here that you knew what we were doing with social content. What we found was because of the podcast, we have a unique way of helping you get your social content out on a very easy way. What we're doing is we're interviewing people, and from that interview, we will capture a lot of information that will then be turned into videos, memes, articles, all things you can use for your social content. I know, like for me, one of the biggest struggles I had was, what do I put out there? What do I say on a regular basis? Well, we'll help do all that for you. So if this is at all of interest to you, reach out to us and let us help you grow your social media channel. I can tell you I did this for my business, and my social media is completely taking off. My Instagram, since I started doing this, jumped to over 10,000 followers, and it continues to grow. So if this is at all of interest to you, check the bottom of the show notes for the link that says Get My Social Content Done